Good afternoon. My name is Willem Van Daal. I'm from Huntsman Textile Effects. And today we're going to have a little talk about fabric preparations and what would be the effects on the colors and the fastness. So let's first start with the first slide. Huntsman is not only textile effects, and this is actually quite a large chemical company. So besides textile effects, we're probably one of the biggest manufacturers of titanium dioxide, maybe not very well known. In textile effects, actually, we do have the whole portfolio of chemicals required for printing and for having washing and everything. In fact, for most of our dyes, we produce our own, we have our own synthesis of the dyes. Okay, so Huntsman Textile Effects, well, most likely we are the leading global textile chemicals and dye business in the market. We have about 10,000 people, 10,000 customers worldwide, and 7 primary manufacturing facilities. And we think we are the best in class innovation. So let's talk about the printing process. So basically, what happens if the fabric arrives at the printing mill? So in general, there will be necessary to have some preparation of pre-treatment. This can be in the form of singeing, desizing, washing, mercerizing, bleaching, and optical brightener. So why do we need all of this? Well, the washing, for example, is very much needed, as the machine which manufactured the fabric could have deposited some oils or maybe some paraffins or something on the fabric. After that, we will have a preparation for inkjet. So the preparation, the chemicals will be put onto the fabric, either by patting, maybe by coating, or by spraying. Furthermore, after this step, we will see the printing. This can be digital or maybe conventional. And after the printing, there will be a drying process, and after that, to fix the colors, the steaming. So we're talking about a continuous steamer, a star ager, or maybe a cassette steamer. Especially for our reactive or acid dyes, you will need this step. Furthermore, again, for acid and reactive, a continuous or discontinuous washing will be required. And at the end, we will need some kind of finishing. So finishing can be very generic, just as a simple softener, or occasionally you will also see some special effects using resins, or maybe some mechanical treatments, like for example in jeans, where you see that the jeans is actually mechanically broken so that it has a used effect. So what are the requirements for the preparation for the pretreatment? Well, first of all, there's some chemical requirements. Of course, you need to have a sufficient wetting ability. Most of the inks are basically based on water, so water-based inks. So it is required that you have a sufficient wetting. Of course, it would be nice if the fabric is also white. Onto a dark fabric, especially with reactive and acids, for example, it's very difficult to print. The pH is very important too, as the condition under which the inks will fix depends on this. And of course, from previous operations, there should be no peroxide or reductive chemicals. And especially in case of viscose, no sulfur, please. Mechanically, actually, this is sometimes a little bit underestimated. The fabric should have the correct width. Makes sense. And of course, no creases or loose fibers are required. And please, no skewed or bowed. It's very difficult to print, especially on the digital printing machines. So from there, we go into the actual chemical preparation for the digital pretreatment. So why is this important? Why do we do this? First of all, well, it has a huge impact on the fixation rate and on the ink consumption. For example, just imagine if you were talking about a color, and your customer wants to have a color which is very dark. You might will put on too much ink. If the preparation is not correct and not is sufficient for the ink and the things you use, you would have to put more ink on there as actually needed. So it actually is a fact. It will increase your ink consumption. Of course, saying that, also color consistency will have an impact on this. And with our preparation, we can control the ink penetration, so how deep it does go into the fibers. Also, quality of the image will be compromised, and the risk of bleeding. If the preparation is no good, you will see a large dot gain, for example. And it will have a big impact on the shade's reproducibility. And last but not final, the fastness is also an important thing. Your customer should be able to wash the stuff for a couple of times before all the ink is gone. So, different fabrics require different preparations, and we need different recipes to optimize the printing results. Well, looking at such a preparation, so what is it normally based on? Well, basically, it's normally for an acid or reactive dye, we are looking at a thickener. This can be a natural thickener or a synthetic thickener. So we're talking about an alginate or maybe Tamacol MP or Pripajet Uni. A migration inhibitor. Most of the cases, if you have a thickener, this will also act as a migration inhibitor, but sometimes you will need to have a combination of the two in order to get the right effect. Then anti-foaming. Are sometimes a little bit underestimated as well. While putting on, you might need an anti-foam so that it is not foaming. Of course, you will need, especially for reactive and acids, urea and a pH adjuster, an anti-reduction agent, and maybe a fastness improver. Again, the recipes will vary depending on the fiber, the end article, what kind of effect you would like to achieve, the method you use for applying these pretreatments, the equipment, and like I said, the desired effects. So, how do we apply them? Well, basically, there's in roll-to-roll, generally what you will see is padding or coating, or even screen printing. For garments, typically it will be either mostly sprayed or dipping, soaking into a bath. Those are basically the typical ways to put on the preparation. So when we're talking about these preparations, we are thinking, why not put the necessary chemicals for the fixation into the inks? Well, there is a couple of problems with this. If we look, as we mentioned before, we're talking about high molecular weight polymers, which we need to put on for thickness, or maybe a natural thickener like an alginate. And those are not stable in low viscosity inks. So that's one problem. So ink stability is compromised. Then, of course, we're talking about high viscose polymer. Rheology is also compromised. And something which is also a problem, the chemicals, like for example the pH adjusters, can cause corrosion of nozzle coatings. So these famous anti-wet coatings are actually being destroyed by this if we would have put it in the ink. And the polymers might cause blocking of the nozzles. As mentioned already, physical properties of the ink will change. So the things like viscosity and surface tension will be compromised. Okay. So the fabric has to be prepared with the necessary chemicals to fix things. This is important. We can't do it in the ink. We have to do it separately. I brought some idea. Okay, so a little bit difficult to see on this. I actually have the samples with me in the booth, so if people are interested. Here above, you see a little bit with a conventional thickener. It's a bit hard to see, but here you can see that it's not so much even, especially here. Here you can see with a different thickener that this is actually improves a little bit, and also the color. And also here, look at this and look at this, it will improve. So this is one of the things where we can see that the appropriate preparation will actually give you benefits in image quality on the fabrics. So this is basically contrast and definition, which is caused, which is basically here the effect. Again, color yield. With the synthetic thickener, you will get, again, it's a bit hard to see, some colors and changes. And here you can see also, but this is more natural. It's actually a better definition. And with a natural thickener, you might see small changes in the color change. So here, especially in orange, for example. See? So again, it affects the colors. So sharpness, the penetration, and color is also affected. When you have no preparation, you actually will see that it bleeds very much, as you can see here. Also, the colors are basically really went off. Here I did it with a standard preparation, and you can see that all of a sudden you see colors, and all of a sudden you see some details. Of course, if you then improve the preparation again, you will see that this is now a red. So it becomes more vivid, more to life. And in fact, what I've done here is I simply used the same image. I didn't use any color management. I just kept the same colors, so the same data, and just printed with the printhead onto the fabric. And you see here that it does make a difference. Also, we were mentioning before, there was fastness improvers. So a conventional preparation, for example, like here, you see that here, that it over time, this is actually light fastness, which we're looking at. Over time, it will fade a little bit. So what you see here is, for example, that the fade is not on tone, meaning that it changes slightly the color. Here you see similar things. Then, if you would have put in the preparation some UV Fast P, which is one of our products, you can see that the changes are now not off-tone, they are more or less in-tone. There is some changes, but as you can see, it's quite a lot less. So, what are the takeaways from this? Well, basically, the impact of a good preparation is quite high. With a good preparation of the fabrics, you can get much more color, and you will have less inks to use. So it affects color, the deepness of the color, the sharpness, and also the fastness at the final stages. You will need to adjust it, especially for reactive and acids, to reflect the whole chain, meaning the inks, the fabric, and eventually steaming and washing off. Similar things also go for pigments, for example, where the preparation is possible to create higher color, deeper colors, deeper shades. If there is any questions?
Perhaps I will have one question for you, Willem. If you think about these preparations, is it fit for all kind of inks that you jet afterwards, or is it typically, let's say, adjusted and balanced with the next step?
No, it's basically from most of the inks, basically. Like I said before, even on pigments, you will get an improved color if you have a well-created preparation. For disperse, as you were seeing, it actually makes a lot of sense to have it. Let's put it this way. For disperse, for reactive and acids, the impact is quite big.
Perhaps another type of questions. If you think about preparations for textile fabrics, of course that helps you out in let's say, forcing the quality and the look and feel of products. Are there any developments that you know of that also will help you in the back end? Just like you have steamers right now and all this kind of mechanical things that you need in the post-treatment of fabrics?
At the moment, there is some ideas around to do. However, this is in initial stages and not really commercial available or not actually in testing. So for this matter, we probably for the next time will be looking at the same things as we have now.
And now my last question. In these kind of, let's say, pre-treatment of textiles, do you have already a lot of customers in there, or are we talking about pilot situations?
No, actually, as mentioned before, Huntsman is a chemicals company, Huntsman Textile Effects. So most of these things are we actually selling to existing customers already.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
One question from my side as well, just straight here. The pre-treatment, does it have to be done in line, or can it be done in a time separate scenario as well? How long do the pre-treatments last on the fabric before they become inusable?
Okay, it depends a little bit on what kind of mixture you're looking at. For example, if we look at a reactive preparation for a reactive dye, generally if you use a natural thickener, for example, it lasts only for 1 week. So after 1 week, you already see quite a degradation in the colors yield. If you look at a combination with a synthetic thickener, that can be a couple of months available without having too much of a degradation. So this also means that if you print, for example, a fabric which is made, and if you wait for a couple of months with a synthetic, with a natural thickener, you will have problems. You will see that the colors will be different.